So it should, so there you go. I believe you're live on Facebook.
Okay,
Will, over to you.
so we are live. Thanks, guys, for jumping on, having a look at this. I hope that there can be some value here when it comes to doing self-tapes and getting yourself out there in front of casting directors or agents or whoever you're putting your tapes in front of. So first of all, I guess I'll say a little bit about me. I'm also an actor. I graduated from one of the London drama schools here back in 2012. And do you know what? Actually, back then, there wasn't a lot of need for self-taping. It was happening a bit, but from what I remember, it was mainly when you couldn't physically be there in person. So if something was, I don't know, in Manchester and you're based in London, or it was even in the US or something like that, you'd be putting tapes down so that people could see you who couldn't physically be there. And so it wasn't a huge thing, and I don't think we learned a lot about taping, whereas now it's a huge thing, and I think it's imperative that actors sort of have a really good understanding about what to do, even in the most simple forms or the most basic of ways when it comes to their self-tapes. So yeah, I graduated back in 2012, and then probably, I think I just had like a little camera. I think I had this little DSLR camera that was maybe a bit better than a few of my mates at the time from drama school. And I think we just sort of, occasionally there'd be someone who'd need a tape and they'd say, "Oh, Will, do you have that camera that we can tape you on? I can do the tape on." And I'd say, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And I think someone even at some point said, maybe you could do something with this, make a bit of a business out of it. And I guess I didn't think much of it, but it just sort of over the years, just sort of spiraled and became a thing that became my out of acting work job, as it were. So this is what I do when I'm not acting, and it's great because it allows me to have a lot of flexibility. It allows me to kind of keep working with actors and staying in it, and kind of seeing how the industry is moving when it comes to things like self-tapes. And it also gives me a little foot in the door as well to know what's being cast at the moment, and what sort of things are out there. So that's another really useful thing with doing what I do. But no, effectively, it just sort of built up, and my goal has always been to try and produce some of the highest quality self-tapes for people, whether it's from a visual point of view, from an audio perspective, all these things coming together to create a really lovely looking tape that will impress on the other end. Now, again, it's also a lot to do with the acting, of course, that comes first and foremost. But I think if we can really kind of show you how to look your best when you're doing your self-tapes, whether you're doing them at a studio like me or whether you go and do them at home, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that we can get the best tapes for you, really. So I work really well off a sort of Q&A basis. So if anyone's got any questions about taping, because I don't know where people kind of are with their self-tapes right now, or if there are any sort of difficult challenges that have cropped up, I'd love to know if there is anyone out there at the minute who's got a tape coming up, or they've just had a tape and maybe something worked really well, or maybe it didn't work really well, or whether they had an issue with the lighting, and maybe there's some things that I can kind of help out with regard to that. So any questions that can come my way, hopefully I can use that as a bit of a springboard to kind of kick things off. But no, I mean, essentially, taping now is going to become super important. As I said before, it wasn't a huge thing back in 2012, and now it's probably the first thing that people are going to see you doing for everything that's the first round. So, I suppose a few years ago now, we'd be in the room for those first rounds, and hopefully we still will go back to being in the room for some of those first rounds. But I think that self-taping is sort of here to stay when it comes to the first time people see you. I mean, it means that they can take a few less risks. They can just kind of get a bunch more people in front of them and then make their selections from that. So I think it's so important more than ever now to get a really good quality tape behind you. And so, yeah, I think, what can I say about self-taping? I mean, I do it every day for other people. So it all becomes a bit of a blur, I've got to be honest. But let's start with, I suppose, some of the pitfalls that I see people making with their self-tapes. So some of the things that people fall into, these traps, I suppose. And for me, one of those is actually sticking to the rules. And I know that sounds weird, but often when you get a self-tape, when you get your casting breakdown through, you'll have a PDF or something that comes through saying, this is how we want you to do your tape. And I would often say to most people, just read it, take it on board in case there's anything that's kind of, I don't know, very specific with that. but most of the time, just throw it away, throw it to one side. As long as you're not filming, in portrait mode or something like that, I think most of the time, just abandon it. It's just there to sort of give people a rough idea on what they should be doing if they don't know what they're doing. But I think when you start to get a bit more competent with your self tapes, you can start to break those rules a little bit, with framing, with things like that. If there's interesting things, sometimes you might want to get closer to the camera to look a bit more intimidating, or move back or face away or direct your eye line somewhere completely different. I feel like some of those rules keep people very static, and so you end up with people in a frame feeling like they're unable to move. But I think actually look at what the scene is giving you, all the information that you can find from that scene. And yeah, basically just try and break some of those very static self-tape rules that kind of say you have to have the framing from the top of your chest to the top of the head. Sometimes you might want to go right in close or pull all the way back. It all depends on sort of how that scene feels at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean that's one of the things. I think it's okay to follow those rules, but try and abandon them, try and throw them away, and experiment a little bit. Another thing that I see people kind of making a few mistakes with is the lighting. I know a lot of self tapes, when you get the breakdown through, it might even say something like, please use natural daylight for your tape. That's okay, it's okay. But what you'll find is we live in the UK, so you've got varying weather conditions, and with that you can have lovely natural light that's coming through looking great for your tape, and then halfway through the sun goes behind the cloud, or vice versa. Maybe the sun comes out and completely blows out your image. So what I would try and do is invest in something, if you can, at home, that is something that provides a light source for you, like a softbox or a flat panel LED. Tell you what, I use some of the things that I use. What have I got around here? Bear with me. These are quite expensive, but you can get similar things that are like this. It's a flat panel LED. It has a variety of different colors, daylight colors, slightly warmer temperatures, and it's very, very flat and portable. So it's not like a huge softbox. So if you've not got a lot of room in your flat or where you live, these are really good because you can just sort of pack them away. So anything that's flat doesn't take up a huge amount of room in the space that you're in, and is very low energy to run, so that they're cost effective as well. These are quite expensive. This sort of thing runs about 150 to 300 pounds, but you can get similar products for about 50, 60 quid. And what that means is that you can close all the blinds or the windows and wherever you are, and you can set up the lighting so that it's a continuous state, so that you're not going to get the variance in the sun coming out, or the clouds covering the sun and changing it. What you want to do is try and find yourself in a nice set contained lighting condition, so that all the way through the tape nothing's ever going to change. Because what you might find is that you've got a 5-minute tape to do, and in the course of that 5 minutes you're getting all sorts of fluctuating weather conditions, and depending on what camera you're using, it's sometimes you have to set your camera specifically for a certain condition, and then as soon as that changes, everything about you just looks completely washed out or blown out, or just not you looking your best. So I think try and find a way to sort out your lighting, so that we can have a continuous state of light. What have we got? How would you work with someone who can ensure they show their... Yeah. Do you know what? It's a tough one, because it's a good question. How would you work with someone to ensure they can show themselves and their personality? I think with self-tapes, it's the one thing we don't get to do when we're in the room. Well, compared to being in the room, when we're in the room, we get to be ourselves. We get to have the chat with the casting director, have a little bit of banter if that's the tone. But I suppose with self-tapes, most of the time they're just clicking and seeing you acting. There's very little time to actually get to know you as an actor. There is the ident, of course, as well. There's the slates that people ask for, which is generally, hi, my name is represented by this agency and I'm 5'11". And you do these slates as a way of kind of showing you maybe in a full body shot or just a wider body shot. And I think some actors use that as an opportunity to show a bit of personality when they're talking about themselves, but often it's quite a quick thing anyway. So you don't really get a chance to do that either. I'm sort of the opinion in a way that I quite like the fact that people just click on my work and they see the acting first. I don't know. I was never a massive fan, actually. Well, I'm not a massive fan of those kind of chats beforehand. A lot of the time, often I'll just, the way that I work is I just want to kind of get in the room, do the work, maybe have a bit of a chat afterwards. But you know, I think at the end of the day, it's preferable to me. But I know that some actors might want to sort of showcase their personality if they're very, very good at that. I don't think I'm very good at that, so I'd rather them just see the work that I'm putting down instead. So yeah, I think use your ident or your slate as a way of showing some personality if you can. If you can bring a bit of charm into that, if you can bring a bit of a just a bit of an idea on how you might work on set, or be on set as a person rather than just the acting, rather than just the character, could be quite a nice way of doing that. Yeah, yeah. What were we talking about before? Lighting. So yeah, lighting's super important. It's probably more important than the camera that you're shooting, because a camera at the end of the day is just something that senses light, you know, on a sensor, and shows whatever's in front of it. So if you can light it effectively, if you can light it well, you're going to get a good looking image. One of the mistakes I think people make a lot of the time is lighting themselves full on with the light. So you get one of these lights, for example, people will turn it on and then they'll just face the light. They'll make the light face them, so it's right in their face like this, and it just makes people look a bit washed out, a bit shiny. Not great. So if you've got a place where you've got walls quite close, or you've got something that you can bounce the light off, I often find that not shining the light at the actors is a much softer feel to the light. So you get more of a wrapped around feeling of light rather than light that's completely kind of blinding you. Even if you have your lights on quite low, if they're facing you, it's just a little bit, I just find it a bit aggressive. And so I'd rather have those lights almost pointing away and filling the room to give you a fill light rather than something that's directly on you. So also consider that as well. But yeah, I would try and find a space in your house or flat or wherever you work, where you don't need to use natural light, just because of those problems that we talked about just now. People are probably thinking about cameras. I don't think cameras matter. I think you can do a great job on your phone. Lots of phone cameras are getting better than ever. A good thing with a phone camera is that a lot of the time it will adjust as the lighting adjusts around you. So if you do have those issues with the light changing, the phone will often sort of keep automatically adjusting depending on the lighting situation. So you've probably got a bit more chance of getting away with that than you have using a DSLR or something that, you know, sometimes you have a very fixed setting in terms of your light, and then if anything changes either side of it, it's completely ruined. So there are advantages for using things that have an automatic function, settings like that can kind of help you out. So cameras, I don't think matter. I mean, I use a mirrorless sort of DSLR hybrid camera that, again, they're quite expensive, but it's what I do as a business. So it's all part of that, and it does give a beautiful look because we get to separate the actors from the background using certain lenses that we have. So it makes the actors really jump out. So a way of getting you guys to do that at home is by trying to get as far away from your background as possible. What that will do is it will mean that the focus is on the actor and the background is well away from you, so that there's that separation, and maybe the background even just starts to blur out a little bit. So we get that nice milky background against what we're looking at, what we're focusing on, which is the actor. So it makes everything a little bit more in focus with what we're looking at, and what's important, which is of course you guys. A lot of people make the mistake of getting right up against their backdrop. So if they've got a backdrop made of fabric, for example, and it has a few creases in it, because fabric tends to do that, and you haven't been able to get out the creases, the closer we are to that background, the more in focus those creases are too, right? So if you can get yourself further away from the background, the camera focuses on you, the creases are not in focus anymore. And so they tend to sort of blur away in the background, making you the standout kind of figure in the frame. So that's one of my biggest tips, actually. Get as far away from your background as the room will allow you. But I understand that a lot of people's rooms don't allow them to do that. And so actors are often forced to kind of go right up against the background just so they have enough room to be seen in the frame how they're needed. But if you do have that option, or if you do have another room that would work better for that, I would highly recommend it. Speaking of backgrounds, how important is what you wear? Is it best to go plain? Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of the actors I work with, when they come in for their tapes, they have a sort of a go-to top, or a few go-to tops, depending on the tone or the mood of the piece. I think always read the piece that you're doing, and get a good sense of the tone, and an understanding of that. But I'm not that fussed about what people wear with the backdrop. I think I personally can do a lot of work in the edit to make stuff pop or bounce, or come out, even if a color is sort of blending into the background. I can do things with that so that it doesn't happen. But I think if you're doing stuff at home and you do find that you're just blending in a little bit with the background, I would just change your top. I don't think you can ever go wrong with long sleeve black, or like a gray, like, I don't know, black, brown, gray, whatever works, whatever's different to the backdrop that you're on, while also staying as true to the characters as possible, I guess. So yeah, I think that's the question, right? Speaking of backgrounds, how important is what you wear? I'd probably say that it's more important to get a sense of the character that you're playing, rather than just wearing something that is favorable for the background. I mean, keep the background in mind, but I would just still play to the strengths of the character, and sort of go down that route. What I wouldn't do is kind of go in full costume. So if you're playing I don't know, actually, I don't know, like a king or something, I wouldn't dress up all in like a regal outfit costume. I wouldn't, but I would just find something that makes you sort of feel a little bit different, a little bit more proud, a little bit more, holds you in a different way, maybe a bit more upright, and I don't know, something that just looks smart, perhaps. But I don't know. Again, having said that, break the rules, do whatever you want. At the end of the day, I've had people come in with a full policeman attire, with a waistcoat and radio and all this stuff, and they booked a job doing that. So it's um it's stuff like that, really. You just think it doesn't really matter. And I always wonder, was it the uniform that got the person the job, or was it the fact that they were just a good actor and they look right? And I think it's just the second one. I think it's the latter. It's just that they did a good job and they look right. Chances are they would have booked that job whether or not they had the outfit or not. So I don't think it matters at all, really. I have a couple of go-to things that I wear, usually long sleeved or black, or like a very dark navy blue, sometimes a short sleeve, or maybe just a shirt for something that's more corporate. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about your background too much. Yeah. uh, Going back to some of the technical things with self-taping, another huge issue that people come up against is poor sound quality. um, I find that people often use their built-in microphones that are on whatever device that they're filming on. So if you're using a phone or a camera or laptop, people are using their built-in microphones. Now, it would be great to be able to use something that can pick up your audio closer to you. So whether that's a microphone on top of the camera that's sort of facing towards you, you could get, let me find this, something like this, which is a shotgun microphone, which you can attach to the base of your camera, plug it in, and then, of course, this microphone is giving a nice sort of directional reach towards the actor, so you get that separation on the audio a little more clearly. It's still quite close to the camera, so if you can, I would maybe put this on a separate sort of, I don't know, tripod or something, and get it a bit closer. But again, you don't need to have something like this. Again, these can be quite expensive, but you can get cheaper options. I would say that anything that is cheaper, that with sound especially, anything that starts to go down in price, so does the quality of the audio. So you sort of do get what you pay for when it comes to your microphones and all that sort of stuff. So have a think what's possible, what you can invest in. But yeah, a good shotgun microphone is a good option. You can probably get something starting from around £100, and then they sort of go way up in price. But this will at least get your audio separate. And if you're using this on a DSLR camera, it will also take away a little bit of the lens noise. So if you get some noise coming out of your lens when it's focusing on you, this should take that away a little bit, because the onboard microphone on the camera is very close to the lens, so you'll hear all that noise from the lens. So it's another reason you want to get audio away from your camera. Another option, and you can get these for phones as well, is a little lav mic plugged in to the bottom of your phone, and it's got a wire, and it'll go along the floor, and you can clip it to your t-shirt or something like that, and it just means that then the audio is very, very close to you. It's going to pick up everything that you're doing here, and it's going to give you a very rounded and rich sound. And it's a really good way of, again, getting the audio as far away from that camera as possible. And then, you know, when you put your stuff through the edit, of course, all that audio sounds really crisp and clear, and you don't get any of that on camera audio or lens noise or anything like that as well. So you can use it for both. You can use it for phones, and you can use it for DSLR cameras. Yeah. So for phones, it's particularly good because I often find the audio quality on that is it's not always that great, and it can pick up a lot of background noise. So what we do by having a little lav mic here is to just separate your voice from the background noise, and hopefully the levels on your voice are really crisp and clear. I actually find that audio is probably more important than the visual when it comes to these tapes. I think people are quite forgiving when it comes to bad quality visuals, but if something is awful to listen to, I think people very quickly switch off. So probably look at your audio first, look at what you're using for your audio, and if there's any effective ways of trying to find something that's just going to marginally, if nothing else, improve it by a small amount. Go on Amazon, type in lav mic, so LAV mic, and then just put for iPhone or for Android or whatever the phone you've got. So just type in lav mic and then the type of phone you have, and you should find some pretty good deals on there for lav mics. You might even be able to find something for about 20 quid, 25, 30 quid, and it will get you going as well, just to sort of experiment with using that type of microphone if you've not done so before. So, and then you might want to invest on something better later on, but it's a good way to sort of get practicing and get started with that, so that you know that it's something you want to continue working with, or maybe you want to try other options. Yeah, so are there any other questions here? So best color for a backdrop. I think, you know, blue's a very popular color, kind of like a dark, rich blue, a gray. I wouldn't go for anything like black or anything that's too sort of oppressive. I think it's just those simple kind of tones that just look good with most people's skin tones. So you've got, you know, blues, light blue. I've got a kind of background here which is like has a gradient to it, with the kind of vignettes on the outside, and I've got grey one behind it that rolls down. I've got an orange, kind of burnt brown one, which is, you know, burnt brown is quite nice. The kind of dark orange, because it just sort of, for certain people's skin tones, it just, again, it really emphasizes certain qualities with people. So I think just do whatever works well for you. I don't think you can go wrong with a sort of a blue. But I'm in favor of something a little bit more light blue, a little bit more kind of more like sky blue. I just find it a little less sort of, again, oppressive. If the background is very heavy dark blue, I personally not a fan of that, but I know that a lot of casting people do use a dark blue, or, you know, in the US, I think that's quite a popular color as well. I think it doesn't matter too much. I think just focus on your performance and make sure that that is key. And again, actually getting some separation between you and your background is probably more important. So find a nice color that works for you and try and get away from it. I wouldn't use red or some kind of crazy colors like that, I don't think, maybe, because they're just, I don't know, the last thing you want is someone to kind of open up your self-tape, and the first thing they think is, oh right, why are they using a red background, or why are they using a kind of yellow background? And they spend the first 10 seconds of your tape kind of just more interested in your background than you. So I think kind of keep it quite neutral, and just something that you think looks good for you. I think everyone's going to be different. So it's always a bit of, do you know what, there's a bit of sort of just playing around with it all, seeing what works. You might you might get something and you find it doesn't work, and it's like, oh, that's annoying. But, you know, it's just a bit of, you know, what's that word? What's the phrase I'm looking for? Not give and take, but sort of, I don't know, just find whatever works. And then once you do have something, just, you can stick to it and kind of use that for, you know, the foreseeable future then. Yeah. Are there any other questions that people have? I think I've spoke, how important is a reader? Yeah, do you know what? I think readers are really important. I mean, there are things now that are coming out, you know, you've got different applications and things that can help with people doing their own voice recordings into a phone or an app, and then having that play back to them. It absolutely works in a pinch, and you know, if you really can't find someone to read with, then it's an option that allows you to still do the job. I think that sometimes it's difficult because you can get locked into a rhythm, you can get locked into a way of doing it when you know that there is a certain time that you have to fit your lines in between before the recording of the other person's line starts again. So it doesn't feel very relaxing. It's never a very relaxed tape. You always feel a little bit against the clock. So if you can, find a reader, find someone who can just kind of help you out with that, and be there physically for you, so that you can kind of have someone to bounce off. And if you want to take, if something's happening to you in the scene and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like you want to say that line at the pace that you've been practicing it, and you want to slow things down, or you just have a moment and it just doesn't feel right, you can do that, because your reader's not going to come in until you've finished your line. Whereas if you're doing pre-recorded stuff, you basically have to kind of come in before that line starts. I think there's, I don't know the name of this app, but I think my girlfriend told me about it a few days ago. Basically, it's I have to try and find out what it's called, but it recognizes the cue line at the end of the phrase and then plays the recorded lines. So then you can take your time because it recognizes the cue. I don't know how effective that is. I've never used it, but I think there are things in development at the minute that are getting better for things like that, which is really handy. But yeah, find a reader if you can. It's hard because people aren't always available, and it can be difficult to keep asking your friends to do things if you've got, you know, if you've got a lot of tapes coming through. But that is where somewhere like me kind of comes into place with the studio stuff. Someone like myself will take care of everything that we spoke about, including the reading, including being able to offer direction and break down the scene with actors, light it, you know, do all the audio, grade it. Cold read app. Maybe it is that one. Maybe it is that one. Yeah, so maybe it's called Cold Read. It's probably going to take my job away from me. So I'm not, you know, can I say I'm in favor of it? Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know. I think it's all right. I don't think it's like perfect yet, but I'm sure like in a few months or a few years it'll be pretty good. So yeah, I'll see. Maybe it'll put me out of a job. But yeah, I think readers are important just for that reason. You know, to have someone to actually bounce off physically. No matter what, if you're working with a recording, it's only going to be so good, right? So, I mean, I've had to do it in the past myself. I've not been able to find a reader in time, and you just have to sort of crack on and do what you can do. And I hope that casting directors are fairly understanding about that, especially, you know, just sometimes the short notice that these tapes can come in on. It's definitely not easy. So yeah, hopefully they're a little bit forgiving. I'd have hoped. So yeah, I've spoken quite a lot about the technical side of self-taping, but I wonder if anyone out there's having any difficulties with their own setups. Like, I'd love to know what people are doing, and maybe if there were any issues with tapes that they'd had recently or in the past where they thought, if only I'd done something else, it would have been better, or if only, you know, I'd changed this or that, it would have been a different story. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions based on sort of tapes that they've done fairly recently. Be good to hear about anything like that. So if anyone's got any questions, do feel free to put them on the chat, and I can hopefully get back to people. If not, it's just basically me talking to the camera non-stop with nothing else to say. I'm only joking. I have got loads of stuff to say. What else is there? Self tapes. You know, when you do this a lot, it's sort of you forget you forget what it is, and you get so into just doing it every day that now I try and reverse engineer it and break everything down. It actually gets me thinking, like, yeah, what does make a good tape? I find people's eye lines sometimes when I watch tapes that people have done. It can really be all over the place, and I don't just mean people kind of looking all over the place. I mean that the eye line is just way out here, or you know, it's just too low, or the camera's too high and the eye line is too low, or vice versa, the camera's too low, the eye line's too high. In most cases, I would try and align the camera almost exactly at your head height, eye height, I don't know why, but I see so many people's tapes when the camera is obviously like really, really low or super high. I guess, you know, sometimes people put it high so that they, you know, it kind of has a slimming effect on the face. So yeah, if you're going to do anything, go a little bit higher. Don't go low. We all know how that works out. So yeah, but I would keep it very sort of in line with you, and then direct your own eye line very close to the lens. It might feel a bit counterintuitive, or it might feel like you're a bit too close, but as long as you're not looking at the camera, if you're just about an inch or so away, it shows a lot more of your face compared to reading off camera like this. And so I would just always get your reader or wherever you're looking to be very, very close to the lens, so that people are really, really seeing you, and making sure that we're not getting way too much profile either, because it's just, if you have that for too long, it's a bit distracting, and we just can't really see into your eyes as well. So I would do that. Another thing, just be really on your lines. I know it sounds really really simple, but I have a lot of sessions actually with actors who come in, and you know, granted, sometimes they've not been given a lot of time with the material, but if half the session is spent learning your lines, it almost seems like a waste of that session, because we're going over stuff, and we could really be taping and getting to the real kind of meat of the scene, and talking about what's actually going on, and working out those beats and shifts and any changes that we need to sort of work out together. And instead, what we're doing is just running lines, and really that's something that could be done at home. And just absolutely drilling it. If you're someone who the lines don't come easy to, then just drill it, so that it's not just about coming to someone like me. It's so that when you're working with your friend who you've kind of roped in to help you out, you're not spending an hour with them just going over your lines, and then getting more and more frustrated because it's already taken an hour. So it's for the benefit of everyone, just to kind of get those lines really, really well learned. Almost prepare your lines as well as you would do for a casting if you were meeting somebody. I think that's what you have to do sometimes. Just in your head, convince yourself that this is a face-to-face in the room meeting, and then it will change the way you learn your lines, because we get too relaxed knowing that it's a tape and that we can just go again and again and again. But the downside of that is that most of the time, as people go on and on with their tapes, the performance just gets a little bit kind of worse, more set in some sort of mold or set in stone. It loses that spontaneity about it, and we just sort of get a little bit of a kind of cookie cutter performance that actually would have been way better if we'd been absolutely on it early on when everything felt fresh. So I suppose that would be another piece of advice to offer there, is just to sort of treat it like an in the room casting. And hopefully you'll just need like 2 or 3, 4 goes at it, and every one of those takes should be something usable, and then you can watch them back and select and see what kind of see which one sort of works best with what you're going for. What else? Oh yeah, to be honest, this is probably quite an important one. I think I see it a lot. I see people on Twitter moaning about this, and casting directors, or you know, it's just labeling your files properly. I mean, you guys probably know this anyway, but it's just, you have to make sure that when we're not editors either. Like most actors are not editors. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the software to be able to do good jobs. I mean, you've got things like iMovie or Windows Movie Maker that can pretty much keep up with the demands of a self-tape, because it is just sort of chopping off the beginning and the end of your tape and making sure that you're just giving them the good stuff, not the bit either side. But yeah, I think when you edit your tapes, just try to do what the instructions tell you. So before, when I was saying just to ignore the taping instructions, I would actually say read how they want you to label it, because you don't want the perfect tape that you've just done to get lost in a folder of self tapes where everyone else has got their name and character lined up, and then yours is just a random number, and no one knows who you are, or what, you know, what character you're reading for or anything. They probably haven't even got time to figure that out. So as long as you label your tapes properly, you're probably going to be okay. I generally, unless people ask me otherwise, or the instructions tell me otherwise, is to go with name first, then the character, and then the scene. So, you know, we're lost in, I don't know, Thomas, scene 1, and then scene 2, and then scene 3. Also check if they want it to be all together as one video. So it might just be one video where you have to kind of put all the clips of your tapes into one file. But more often than not, especially now, they're asking for tapes to be all sent individually. So then it will be sort of, you know, scene 1, separate tape, done, scene 2, separate tape, and then whatever else is needed. So just pay real attention to how they want that delivery to be put forward to them, because by not getting that right, you might just be, you know, scuppering your chances of actually even being seen, and you don't want to do that after putting all the work into the tape. Okay, what other questions are coming up? Because there must be some other stuff here that I've not covered, because I'm generally quite useless at stuff like this, as you can tell. So ask questions, and hopefully I can give something a bit more focused and direct, based on what you people kind of need, what you guys want to sort of know about. So I'm just basically going to sit here like this and wait for questions, unless I think of anything else that comes up. Oh, I know this. I know there's some questions out there. Don't be shy. All right. Oh, also, don't be late. Don't be late. If you come to see me for a self-tape, because then you just have less time. It's pretty, yeah, that's self-explanatory, that one, isn't it? And I probably will have someone booked afterwards as well. So even though I want to kind of keep running with you, if we run out of time, sometimes we just run out of time. So I'll always make sure we have a little bit of leeway either side, so that if things are just overrunning a little bit, you've got that flexibility. And I never want people feeling too stressed out. But if you do go to any self-tape studio out there, then yeah, just turn up on time, because you'll get all the benefits of that. Yeah, funnily enough, I get a lot of late people, and then it's always a bit of a push to get through to the end. So yeah. What else? Does anybody who's watching go to a self-tape studio? Do they know about self-tape studios? Is there any studios that they can recommend or go? I mean, obviously me, that's a given. But is there anyone else that they know they work well with, or any experiences that they've had that maybe didn't go the way they wanted to, or they're a bit apprehensive about going to a studio to get their self-tape? Because don't get me wrong, I mean, I wouldn't go to a studio for every single self-tape that you have. And some people that I work with, you know, are getting, you know, three or four auditions a week, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And I guess you just have to kind of pick and choose your favorites then, and choose which one maybe you go to a studio for, just because there's something about it that really resonates with you. And you think, do you know what, if I give it 100% and go all the way with the production values and make everything look and sound amazing, then it just gives it that extra little nudge, that extra little 5% for the team on the other end watching it, seeing something they can really appreciate and see all your acting and everything in the best possible light, literally. So yeah, I wouldn't go for everything. You know, if you've just got a couple of lines and a little thing and you just want to kind of bash it out at home, great. But I think it's just about getting your home setup as good as it can be. All right, I'm surprised, guys. Come on, there's got to be a few more questions, even if it's just like one or two questions that people have, because I know that self-tapes are a lot busier than they used to be now. So there's got to be some people out there doing a self-tape, maybe this week or last week or 2 weeks ago. Is there anything? All right. So I'll tell you what. Actually, I also run show reels as well. So I shoot a lot of show reels for actors. So that's a whole other topic. But it's an interesting one. And I try to bring as much as I can from my world of acting as an actor into, I suppose, both my self tapes and show reels. A lot of my experience has been on sort of set on TV and film over the last sort of, I suppose, 9, 10 years. So what I've tried to do is bring as much of my knowledge from being an actor on some of these sets, and then kind of applying it at a smaller scale into all the work that I do. So I like to feel that I kind of do have a good foot in terms of foot forward in terms of knowing what's going on in the industry, and sort of what it's like to be on set, and what it's like, you know, putting yourself up as an actor for auditions, doing tapes as well. So I might be taping somebody on a Tuesday, and then on Wednesday I'm doing my own tapes, and on Friday I'm taping someone else. So it's all sort of interlinked, and I can hopefully offer that sort of you know, that sort of thing for actors, knowing that they're not just coming to someone who, you know, does it from a technical side, but I'm also there kind of living it as well, hopefully. Can you give me any tips on intros, and what do you need to cover? Just intros, just is that the question? Can you give some tips on intros, and what do you need to cover? I would say just cover the information that they ask you to. So before this Zoom call today, I was taping for someone this morning, and for the ident, or the intro, it just said to give their name, height, and where they're based. So for me, it would be, hi, I'm Will Austin, I'm 5'11", and I'm based in London. And it would just be that. I wouldn't give any more information if they hadn't asked for it. Sometimes they can be quite open and vague. They can just be, you know, tell me a bit about you. And I think that just has to be about you, right? And whatever you've, just find something interesting that you've done recently. It doesn't have to be about acting. It can just be about something you're doing, or I don't know, but I think always keep it positive. I wouldn't talk about, you know, COVID and how all that stuff, I think people just want, yeah, we've had a lot of that. So I think just find something that doesn't take too long, 30 seconds, because I don't think people are watching for longer than that, honestly. And just find something a little bit upbeat and bright, and shows a way of showcasing your personality as well. But if not, I would just go with whatever they tell you to do. So yeah, don't give any extra information that you don't need. Just I don't like doing my slates. I hate them. I'll often put my slate at the end. Sometimes even if they ask for it at the beginning, I'm just like, I don't really like it, so I'll put it at the end, and I'll make sure that they see the acting first, because by the time they've clicked on your tape, they're already watching you, right? So, I mean, if the ident is at the end, so be it. I'd rather put it at the end. Another little thing is interesting as well, and a few of my clients do this, and it works really well for them, is that if you're doing a self-tape and you've got 2 or 3 scenes, for example, the second scene might be your strongest scene. It might, as I said, resonate with you in a more truthful way. Something about it just, you know, relates, and you're able to give a really good performance on that second scene. And the other 2 scenes, maybe what 1 and 3, like they're fine, but the second scene is the one that really gives you the stuff to work with. I would just put that scene first. So actually change the order of your scenes, so that the first thing they're clicking on is the thing that is your best work. There's no point them watching scene 1 thinking, oh yeah, they're good, but they've not quite got it, and they never get to scene 2. You might as well put what you want them to see in front of them first. And if it's individual clips, if they want your clips labeled individually, like scene 1, scene 2, and scene 3, just label scene 2 as scene 1. It doesn't matter. By the time they've clicked on that, they're watching you. So it really doesn't matter. And if it's your strongest performance, they're not going to click off just because it's been labeled the wrong scene. So use that little trick to get your material that favors you and is your strongest work in front of people watching. Because if scene 3 is your best scene, and each scene is about 4 minutes or like 2 minutes long, they've got to watch 4 minutes of your footage before they even get to scene 3. So put scene 3 first if it's your strongest scene, or just label it scene 1. And I find that is a really good tip for getting people well, having success with these tapes, because then people are seeing the amazing work first and foremost. They haven't got to wait to get there, because the chances are, I think, if it's a self-tape and they don't think you're quite right for it, they're probably not going to watch all the way through to scene 3, but maybe scene 3 is the one that shows them that you are right for it. You know, maybe it's just that thing. So definitely do that. And if people say don't do that, then ignore them and do it anyway. Yeah, that's actually probably one of my biggest tips, because I think a lot of actors just go by the rules and they go scene one, scene two, scene three, scene one, every time, every single time. So just change it up. Put your best scene first every time. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Oh, hang on. Hang on. Let me just see what's going on here. Yes. Oh, okay. Da, 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 da. See what's going on. Tell you what, one of the difficult things with self-taping is sound. A lot of people are including myself sometimes, depending on where I'm based or what I'm doing, you end up having a lot of problems with sound conditions. Like maybe you've got a loud neighbor, or you've got some kids screaming outside, or there's a helicopter buzzing away. I would try to say, don't worry about it too much. I mean, I remember going back in before COVID, going into the rooms in central London, meeting people. You're in central London sometimes, and everything is noisy, and they don't care about it then. So I don't think they care about it with your tape. But I know people who, there'll be something like a plane going overhead or a helicopter. Not well, where I'm based is very quiet. I'm very lucky, but I'll see people's tapes sometimes, and they've told me that it was like their 10th take or something, because they had to wait for all the perfect conditions, even though they felt like take number 3 was their best take. And I just feel like it doesn't matter, right? Just use your best take. I think they're really forgiving when it comes. I think people watching it on the other end are very forgiving when it comes to the tapes that they get and the conditions that they know everyone's in, especially in and around London. We can't really get away from noises or distractions. So if you've got a tape that you think you nailed, but there was a siren in the background, or there was a helicopter or lawnmower or something, I'd be very inclined just to send it through anyway, just because they're looking at your performance first and foremost. I mean, if the sound is bad enough that we can't actually hear anything you're saying in that period of time, maybe that's a different case. But I would just say that, yeah, just use it anyway. I think they're very forgiving. So yeah, don't spend hours waiting for the perfect conditions, if you don't have to, because I think it's often at the detriment of the performance, especially when it starts to get into your head. You're thinking, oh God, is there going to be a siren coming past any minute now? And half your head is in that, and not on the acting. So I would just look at that as well. Another tip, and this will be different for everyone, but yeah, what am I saying here? I think it's about playback and watching your own performance back. And sometimes it's not that beneficial actually to watch yourself back. Sometimes I'll work with actors, and they'll watch the playback of their performance, and then there's like a switch. All of a sudden, they're really in their head about how they look doing that thing. So before they've watched the playback, they'll feel in the moment, everything will just be happening. They don't know how they look doing it. It's just a moment to moment thing. And then as soon as they've watched the playback, they become super aware of how they look during the scene. And so they'll try to make these micro adjustments on their physicality or what they're doing, just so that they can maybe look better, or put on a voice in a different way. So it's really interesting to see that. And I'd be quite tempted to sort of say, perhaps do your takes, allow the person you're reading with to sort of offer some feedback and their opinion on it maybe, and go with and trust them. And so that when you've done all your takes, pack everything away and then watch them, so that you've kind of packed it all away, so you can't do any more because your friend has run off as well, you haven't got anyone to read with. And then watch your takes back and pick from there, because you'll be less inclined to want to go again. I think that's the very difficult thing with self-taping at home. It's the idea that, you know what, I can just do another one. And I think people tend to spiral and just kind of continue down this path of taping for 2 hours or something like that. And it's not actually getting any better, because at the end of the day, most people's tapes are very similar after the first few takes. And it's generally how you look, how you sound, what's your interpretation on that character. That's all we really kind of care about at this stage, right? So by just going again and again and again and again, it doesn't really change anything. And often I'll say to actors that I work with, do you know what? Take number one is great. Take number seven is great. Or, whichever tape you get, whichever tape you choose to send is probably going to have the same result. They're not going to look at tape number one and go, yes, we love him, and tape number seven, no, we hate him. They're probably going to be on a very similar playing field. So if they like you for one take, they'll probably like you for the other. So don't get too hung up on perfection. I don't think any tape is a finished product. It's just, how do you look? How do you sound? What's your interpretation for this first round on the character? And I think just do as much prep in the background and learning your lines and all that stuff that you can, so that when you come to do your tape, you have a very clear direction of the way that you want to portray that character and put it down. It's always more difficult when people are vague about what they think this character is or what they think they want to do with it. And I think coming with a few just clear choices, they don't have to be out crazy or completely out there. They just have to be kind of clear and make sense with the information that you've got on your pages. And most of the time, all the information you need to play that character, at least in that moment, in the context of that moment, will all be on the page in that scene, even if you've not got the whole script, because most of the time we're not being given the whole script because of confidentiality reasons or things like that. So I would just say that take all the information you can from the page, every little bit. I mean, I will work with people sometimes, and they haven't even worked out yet. They've read their lines, but they've not seen that it's actually set outside in the rain, in a storm. And so they haven't taken any of that stuff into consideration in terms of physicality, or whether they're wet or cold, or where they're coming from. So, read everything from the beginning, where it says external, I don't know, garden, windy, just make sure you know everything that you're going into, so that every choice is considered based on what they're saying, where they are, who they're with, what's being said about these characters. So do all that prep beforehand, and then hopefully when you come to the tape, you've got a few clear and solid choices to make. What else? The hardest tapes sometimes are just the one-liners as well. One line is really hard, because if you're playing I don't know, a paramedic, or even just someone working in a cafe or bar, and you've got one line, to us as actors, if we get the gig right, if we get the job, that one line is a big deal. But to the character, for that character as a barista, it's just another line in their day. Just another line, that's just another thing that they say in a 24-hour day. It's like it's nothing. So they're super hard, because as actors we put a lot of emphasis on, I want this part, I want to get it, I've got to, yeah, let's give it everything I've got. Whereas really, you probably don't have to give it a lot at all. You just have to trust in in the line and what you're saying, and just treat it like it's an everyday occurrence. And I've personally always found those hard, because often you get these one-liners for things in big movies or big films or franchises, and you just think, wow, that would be great to kind of be a part of that. I've got to really smash it. And if it's one line, it kind of feels like, do you know what? I've got a chance at getting this. And then like you pour your heart and soul into it, and it often can be overdone. It can be a bit too full on. They can almost sense the desperate actor behind the line, and there's a confidence in just being able to just throw that away and just treat it for what it is. And often they will just be very, very simple. Oh yeah, this way, mum, or here's your coffee, something like that. But you've not got to do much with those lines. A lot of the time it's just informative stuff that moves the plot or the story along for the main characters in that show. So you almost have to be quite forgettable, which kind of goes against how we feel about doing these self-tapes as actors. We want to not be forgettable. But yeah, I still struggle with stuff like that, because it feels counterintuitive on what we're trying to do, which is present ourselves in a way that's going to get us noticed for something and hopefully be right. So yeah, that's another little tip as well. Try and take those one-liners with a pinch of salt, and just imagine you've lived as that character for a while, and that whole day of that character's life is just made up of so many things that the one moment in that scene is just another thing that they wouldn't even think of twice, to be honest. So yeah, coming up to the end now of the session at 2. Oh God, yeah, 2 o'clock. I don't know where the time went. I feel like I've just been spewing utter nonsense, maybe with a few nuggets of gold, interspersed, hopefully. But yeah, so 5 minutes I think I've got left. If anyone's got any burning questions or just something that they want to get off their chest, now is the time to do it, because I have to leave at 2 o'clock. So yeah, 4 minutes. I'll do a speed round. If anyone just pops the questions in, I'll just try and answer them as quickly and as effectively as I can, because I know that I can tend to waffle. So yeah, I'm just going to hang here for like 3 more minutes and wait for people to pop a question. Okay, another tip, don't look straight down the lens. That's pretty simple, right? Although I did something recently for someone who was actually doing a part of that scene down, like as if they're talking to a phone or something, doing a vlog. And so for a period of that time, they would be speaking to the actor that they're with in the room, and then they'd be coming back to their vlog. Then we use the lens for that. So I think every tape is a bit different. Figure out the scenario, the situation, and there might be a few occasions when you're looking down the lens. But yeah, most of the time, like 95% of the time, don't deliver your piece down the lens, especially not a two-hander. A monologue, maybe, if it fits the tone of the piece, or if it feels right. But yeah, most of the time, just a little bit off eye line. What else? Any questions? What have we got? Come on, there's got to be one last question before I go. There will be one last question. I'm just trying to find. Well, look, I will tell you a bit more about what I do. So I run a self-tape studio in North London for any actors who have last-minute self-tapes, or people who want to just come in and put down a monologue for agents or people like that. So I'm based in North London, in Southgate. I can travel to people sometimes if time permits it, but often I'm very busy here working with people in the studio. And effectively what we'll do is put down a very, very good tape where we can kind of work through all the nuances, everything that's kind of needed from that tape. It's not just a case of me technically being able to kind of offer all the technical side of things and the lighting and the camera and the audio, but we will be able to sort of hopefully get the most out of the scene from an acting perspective as well. So come with those choices, come with all those things that you think you want to do with the character. And then sometimes there may just be little things that I can throw in, or little suggestions that just sort of lift a few things up, or things maybe you haven't thought of. So yeah, it's a very collaborative thing. Hopefully we get a very well-rounded idea of hopefully what they're after from these self-tapes, and put it down in a very relaxed, comfortable space. I mean, that's the thing, really. I want to make this as relaxed as possible for people, and it not to feel like going into a casting room where you're under so much pressure. You get a couple of takes and then you're out the room and you just think, God, if only I'd done something else. So sometimes that's what I'll ask people in the room. I'll say, do you know what, if you were to go home now and you're on your train back, is there anything that's just, is there anything that you'd think, oh bloody hell, like if only I'd done that? Well, if there is, let's do that. Let's just quickly do one more take. So yeah, I like to kind of keep it as relaxed and as fun as possible. And yeah, once you do your take, we get everything kind of edited, sound synced, color graded, put together for you, and sent through to you and your agent. So it's all done. Literally, the only thing you have to worry about is is the acting, which hopefully you will come and absolutely nail. So yeah, well, look, I think that is my time up. I didn't have any other questions. So if that is everything, I will call it a day, and good luck everyone with your self-tapes. I hope there's a lot of stuff coming in for everyone at the moment. It should be getting busier and busier, so fingers crossed. And if you do need me, you can find me at self-tape.co.uk. Don't forget the hyphen, otherwise you may go somewhere else. So yeah, self-tape.co.uk. Check us out, check what I do, and yeah, if you need something, do get in touch. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.